For quite a long time, I had a very hard time choosing what I would use as my smartphone. Would it be Apple or Samsung? Because, Apple for one is a popular brand, but most of my family actually uses Samsung phones. Like, both my parents use Samsung, my grandparents use Samsung, both my uncles do. I couldn't figure out whether I wanted an Apple or a Samsung. So I pretty much decided at first to go with what my parents had, and I tried Samsung. As soon as the iPhone 10 came out, that's when I knew, okay, I'm sticking with Apple because I saw a design I've never seen before and always wanted, to be honest. So, the iPhone XS. It's not the iPhone 10, but it's bigger and it's, well, got slightly better specs. So, I've been using this phone for about a year. And I've mentioned in my original unboxing, this is my dream iPhone. Over a year later, after that unboxing, and me saying this is my dream iPhone, is that still the case today? First thing that everyone seems to start off with when it comes to product reviews is, well, the design. And, well, that's what brought me to the iPhone in the first place, because I couldn't tell if I wanted Samsung or Apple. I know that the iPhone X design was very controversial with the notch. Hello, to some people it's an intrusion, but from what I saw, I actually viewed it as an extension, and it's kind of like the whole perspective, half full, half empty. This is one of those perspectives where you could say the notch, it's intruding in your content. The display should go past that notch. The display should go past this notch, and it doesn't. It's cutting into your content. This is an intrusion, and this is unacceptable. This is what a lot of people have thought, although those people now are using smartphones with hole punches, which, to be honest, I view those as intrusions because the display actually does go up there, and something is literally taking up space, not on the edge of the display, but in it. So, when it comes to my preference between notches and camera holes, to be honest, I'm going to go with the notch every single time. I don't like the camera hole. That is literally an intrusion. Versus this, I view this as an extension because, well, the display really could just end there, but they brought it up to make these ears. Therefore, well, it's making better use of this form factor. And not to mention, also, other cool things about the display is, well, it's practically edge to edge. No, it's not curvy like the way Samsung does it, and I do think that is cool, by the way. But notice, where's the chin? It's one size bezel all the way around, and this is something you rarely see on many smartphones these days. A lot of them have close to curving the screen, but they still have a chin at the bottom. Now, they have been getting thinner, but they're still nowhere near as thin as the iPhones. And you know what? I don't know why they still can't get near that, but I can't complain because I love this design. And other things about the design, well, yeah, that is the most controversial part of it. Well, what about other parts, like, say, I don't know, the materials? Because for some reason, I really don't understand why, but there are people who are out there that say, the iPhone is dated, it's made of cheap materials, it's expensive, made of cheap materials. Cheap materials, you say? Well, first of all, I'm about to shatter your dreams because as someone who works part-time in a machine shop that machines metal, I can safely say stainless steel is not cheap. And I get it, they used plastic on the iPhone 5C and I think the 3G and 3GS, but they haven't used plastic ever since. They've been using aluminum for the cheaper ones. Let's be honest, guys, aluminum isn't really as cheap as you think it is. For the phones with stainless steel, oh, it ain't anywhere close to cheap because, first of all, stainless steel is more expensive than regular steel, and then this version of the stainless steel, because I have it in gold, which to be honest, well, is beautiful, it has to be anodized so it gets the correct shade of gold that Apple wants, which, I don't know if you know this, drives the price way up there. So, cheap materials? Where the heck did you come from? Apple has not been using cheap materials on iPhones lately. In fact, last time they used cheap materials on an iPhone, aka plastics, was the iPhone 5C in 2013. We're almost 10 years away from that at this point, so stop complaining about cheap materials because, to be honest, they're really nowhere close to it. But yeah, overall, in terms of design, this is beautiful. This is why I stuck to this and not the newer iPhones. Just take a look at it. It's beautiful. I love the clean camera setup. I love the notch in the display because A, the display is being made great use of, and B, well, it's awesome. And speaking of other specs in terms of the display, well, this is obviously the max model, so it's a 6.5-inch OLED, and some people may have concerns about burn-in. This does not have OLED burn-in, I can guarantee you that, because, I mean, let's go to a white screen here. Bam! White screen. These are my specs on this channel, actually. The only green I see is just those green arrows of, hey, my viewers is going up, which is awesome. But yeah, in terms of OLED burn-in, I don't see any. And this phone, I have been using this phone for only a year, and the display has never been turned on after about, well, a year and a half of being created, so I don't expect it to have burn-in. Then again, iPhone 10s, which are the first iPhones to have OLED, I still haven't heard many reports of those having burn-in, so the quality of this display panel is amazing. Glorious Retina, awesome OLED with those pitch blacks, great colors. One of the reasons why I struggled between Apple and Samsung when picking those phones is because Samsung displays are awesome. One thing for certain, when I do get external monitors, like upgrading from this 21-inch Acer one, I'm upgrading to Samsung ones because Samsung display panels, in my opinion, are the best. And, well, hey, this iPhone has a Samsung display panel. Yay! I love it. Yeah, I have no complaints with the display. And one more reason why I stuck with this versus the 11, because at the time I really could have purchased the 11, but the reason why I stuck with this also has one more feature that has been dropped, which is, well, 3D Touch. 3D Touch is still a thing on this thing, and yeah, well, despite that you can still long press it and get the same thing, I still often 3D touch it because, well, it's quicker. One area that I really do not like with the newer iPhones without 3D touch, see these buttons here? The flashlight? A long press really does not feel right when pushing these shortcut buttons. I really like pushing it like a physical button. And thank you 3D Touch for allowing me to do that. So that's pretty much it for the display. What else do I have to talk about? Oh yes, security. So obviously 2020 has been a train wreck for this one feature, which is Face ID. Though to be honest, Touch ID never really works that well for me. I mean, I've been lucky with certain devices to get Touch ID to work. I have a skin condition called eczema, which, well, basically means your body doesn't really produce enough skin in certain areas. It's common with me on my fingertips where fingerprints are. And if you take a look at my thumb, actually, there's no fingerprint. The most common finger that people use to unlock their iPhones with Touch ID, because Touch ID is on the front and the home button, that doesn't work for me because that most common finger has no fingerprint. And all my other fingerprints half work and half don't. So Touch ID is a mixed bag for me in terms of if it works or not. Though, thank goodness, this is the iPhone XS Max and it doesn't have Touch ID. And thank goodness, despite that, yeah, facial hair and all that. Face ID has pretty much been dead reliable. I have never locked myself out of my iPhone just because of Face ID not working, versus when I've tried other iPhones and Touch ID just flat out doesn't want to work. I mean, every now and then when my glasses darken because I got the transition lenses, when those darken, sometimes it kind of gets this thing to question, okay, who are you? After one, maybe two attempts of failures, I get in most of the time. And those 1 to 2 attempts where it doesn't work, that happens like 2% of the time. It works most of the time for me. Also, I never got tricked with a picture because, well, it does a 3D map of your face. So Face ID, pretty dang reliable. Okay, so that's the security metrics, and let's talk about some other important things, like cameras. The cameras are one big reason why some people will upgrade phones, because they see other people's newer phone cameras and then they compare it to theirs. Oh, yeah, that looks fuzzy and, oh, I don't know, and all that. And while you could say this is a bit controversial, I use my phone cameras a lot for making these videos. In fact, I'm using another phone camera to record this right now. So the cameras are important. But why did I stick with the XS Max versus the 11 Pro? Because the 11 Pro is an extra camera, and I'm a YouTuber, and I use my phone camera all the time. Mainly because Apple, for some reason, decided to make the camera bump messy, which is, I don't know not really them. I get it. The equal distance between all the lenses, I get that. I mean, you can't at least make the box black. It's an absolute mess. That is the reason why I did not get the 11 Pro. It's an absolute camera mess, and I compared that with this. And the main difference is, well, okay, night mode, yeah, this doesn't have night mode, but most of the time I shoot in light scenarios, so I don't see a reason to get dark mode. What about the extra lens? I mean, my previous phone did have an ultra-wide lens. I can't English. My previous phone did have an ultra-wide lens, and this one obviously has a telephoto instead, but I've gotten used to not using the ultra-wide. It's pretty much worked out. My biggest thing was I needed to make sure I have a dual camera setup on at all times. So I do have a dual camera setup here, and then the face camera is okay. The basic measures in terms of what I consider in terms of camera specs is what it can record or capture. So in terms of pictures, well, you can get over 3,000 pixels in terms of your resolution, which, wow, that's great for a square. And then obviously you can crop in with the 4:3, and thank you in iOS 14, 16:9. Why did it take so long for 16:9 photos to come to iPhone? But yeah, the photo quality has been excellent, high resolution, no complaints. And then video quality is my biggest comparison for all cameras. They can shoot up to 4K at 60 frames per second. Both cameras are optically stabilized, which is very important. No night mode, unfortunately, but well, I don't really shoot in night situations that often, so that's fine. And then the front camera, 1080p at 60 is the highest, which is great because I record most of my videos in 1080p at 60. And, well, this one might not be the case because the phone I'm using can't shoot 60 anything, which drives me nuts. But yeah, ever since I got this, I upped my quality to 1080-60 best as possible. And I'm happy to say that I'm grateful that both my rear lens, while I can do 4K at 60, I'm not ready to go there just yet because this iMac here, not really ready for handling that type of footage. Neither is my MacBook. So 1080-60, it does, well, somewhat okay. The front-facing cam, 1080p 60, great. I can do every single camera scenario I need to do. So in terms of cameras, well, yeah, it's missing out on a lens compared to the newer models. I have zero complaints. It does everything I need to YouTube-wise. And if you really need to see sample video footage, just take a look at other videos I have on all my YouTube channels because this is generally the phone I use to shoot it with. And then in terms of pictures, because I don't generally take that many pictures, luckily I went mowing someone else's lawn yesterday and they have a beautiful garden, so I took some pictures with those pretty flowers that he had. And yeah, it's great. And also, portrait mode has been very helpful because you notice the past couple of times I put my face in there. I've actually been using portrait mode, and yeah, it's not exactly the best, and that's because of the filtering tool I have. The main thing I do with portrait mode is I set it to portrait. Let me get here. I then take the filters all the way to stage light, which pretty much blacks out the background, and then I use a filter tool to erase the black background and give me a basic PNG file format. So that's how I've been getting my face in my thumbnails. And while yeah, portrait mode is not that great, especially when it comes to masking my hair because, I mean, it's dark and I'm setting it with a black background. But when I use like the bokeh effect, everything works just fine. So cameras, I can't complain. The cameras really hold up well in 2021 and they're going to continue to hold up well for years. Alright, here's one concern that some people have when it comes to older phones. Battery. How has the battery held up? Well, first of all, let me check under battery health. I've made tweets constantly bragging about how I'm still at 100% battery health. I have it pulled up on my phone right now, and so it is currently June 31st. I know I am late to this, but it's currently June 31st, and here's what my percentage is reading. You need proof that I have 100% battery health? Here's your proof. This is 100% battery health on June 31st, 2021. The battery has been awesome. I mean, it is very rare. I have had the occasions where I use my phone a little more than my usual, and those general times have often been either parties or visits with other friends where I have my phone out more often because we're sharing things all the time. Those have usually been the cases where my phone really needed a charge, or if I'm having a long day of filming, because using the camera actually does suck a lot of battery, but that's the case with all phones. Most of the time, I've only had to charge this at night. I've never really had to plug it in during the day, and not to mention, I've only had 3 instances total. 3 instances, no more than 3, where I have used the charge port to charge the phone. Other than that, I have been exclusively wirelessly charging this phone. I guess wireless charging isn't that bad for your battery health because I've been using this for over a year. I purchased this June 17th. I'm still at 100%, so wireless charging is great for the battery. I'm still at 100%, and while you could say, dude, don't charge it overnight, you're gonna suck up all your battery, it's gonna ruin the health! Ah! I charge this overnight every single night. And for your information, this thing, as well as many other phones out there, have a feature that keeps the phone at 80%, which is what's recommended in terms of where you should keep your battery for prolonged battery use. It'll keep this thing at 80% until I wake up. Once I wake up, it's always charged at 100%, and it will not charge above 80% until I wake up. That is nice. So the phone has rarely ever been under 20%, and it's been under 20% 3 times. Like I said, it's rare, and in terms of charging overnight, it gets to 80% at some point during the night, and then before I wake up, it gets to 100. So I have no complaints on the battery's charging. Oh, not to mention, while yeah, it's at 100%, and keeping it at 100% is not great, how did I manage to keep it under 80 then? I mean, keep the battery health this great? Easy. I wake up every morning and use like the first 15% of this in the morning after I get out of bed before I make breakfast. I manage the battery on this thing just fine. In fact, I noticed it's kind of funny because Andrew Erickson of Tailosive Tech, I remember this when he made his iPhone XS Max review. He mentioned that the battery health was great, and then literally the day he recorded it, or sometime close to it, it dropped to 99%. And this was a year review. Well, I'm using this over a year and I'm still at 100% battery health, so I guess I beat the Apple sheep at battery health on the iPhone XS Max. Pretty cool. One of the last things I need to talk about with this is, well, the general use of it, using the OS, general performance of it. So, in terms of using it, it's iOS, which is my preferred platform. I'm not dissing Android anymore because, I mean, I've used it. It's fine. It's just there's a few things that really annoy me about it, like, your phone is charging, your phone's fully charged, etc. I'm not going on that route again. The notification management sucks on that. I prefer it much more on this. I mean, it's fluid. It's no 120 Hz like a lot of Android phones offer today. Well, then again, there weren't many of that Android phones even back then that had 120 Hz. So 60 Hz is really fine. I mean, I've seen the 120 Hz on the iPad Pro before, because, not to mention, my Walmart has the new M1 iPad Pro in stock, and yes, both the 11-inch and the 12.9-inch, so I got to see those. 60 Hz is fine. I don't know why some people consider it a deal breaker when their phone doesn't have 120 Hz. 60 is really fine. It's not bad, it's smooth, and most YouTubers actually often shoot their videos at 30 frames per second. When a lot of YouTube videos are being shot at 30 frames per second, that means you really only need a display that can refresh at 30 Hz max to play it back. So considering that, and you guys can tolerate watching footage playback at 30 frames per second, I'm pretty sure you can tolerate 60 frames per second. What's the deal with the refresh rate? I mean, yeah, it's cool when it does it, but 60 Hz is fine. And then general performance, the A12 Bionic still holds up to this day. I mean, I do notice where it is a tad slower at like export times. I did an iMovie test on this once before, and yeah, I was a tad slower than I've noticed other iPhones that are newer than this, as well as, well, just general power intensive stuff. And one of the biggest things is I've actually seen people update their apps on the 11 and the 12. Yeah, the installation time is a tad slower, but I can live with it. I mean, it's still lightning fast. It does everything I need it to do. There's no performance issues, and this can carry on for at least another, oh gee, how long? Like 5-10 years? That's how good the processor in this thing is. It holds up well. Oh, it's fast, it's powerful. I mean, the A12X, which is the X variant of this, competed with the i9 at the time, so yeah, I shouldn't expect this to perform any worse. So this thing performs really stellar even in 2021, and it's going to perform stellar for quite a long time, considering how we're really struggling to find the performance upgrades in the latest chips until ARM v9 comes out. Just generally using the phone for my use cases, which is mainly Twitter, YouTube Studio, Discord, and, well, web browsing, weather, camera, music especially. And no, I did not miss the headphone jack, and here's the reason why. Because I got AirPods Pro, I don't need the headphone jack. Music playback on this thing is just fine. The speakers, well, they are not exactly great because they're smartphone speakers. Smartphone speakers aren't the best, they are decent compared to other smartphones that I've heard. But yeah, the general stuff I use this for is primarily all of my social stuff, because, I mean, the phone is supposed to be your social connectivity device. This thing has done everything I've needed it to do with excessive power. I've barely found a way to take advantage of it most of the time, so yeah. This thing holds up very well, and I'm going to continue holding on to this for quite a long time. Like, I have no plans to upgrade my smartphone of choice, because this is still my dream iPhone. Until Apple finally releases an iPhone that cleans up the camera module, because, man, that is such a mess! Until they clean it up, this is my dream iPhone, because it literally does everything that I need it to, not to mention still has 3D touch. And I'm going to assume I'm going to be able to hold on to this for a very long time, because considering that the iPhone 6s, a phone released in 2015, is getting 7 years of software support. This came with iOS 12, we're about to get iOS 15. This thing's about to turn 3 years old, which means it'll be going on year 3 of software support. And considering that the iPhone 6s is getting 7, I reckon that this might get 7, who knows, maybe even 8 years of software support. iPhone XS Max. Can I recommend this? Yes. If you're looking for a cheaper flagship iPhone with the nice premium feel, because again, this has the stainless steel and all that, the awesome OLED display at a discount, or if you can find it used, yes, I can totally recommend this iPhone. This has been my favorite smartphone ever. In my opinion, it's the best smartphone ever. I've considered smartphones to have peaked ever since this thing came out. I'm keeping this under good protection. I know it's currently out of its case, but I do have a case for it, and I've been using it in its case most of the time. I just took it out because whenever I'm showing it off on YouTube, the case looks ugly, so I kept it out. So iPhone XS Max, solid win, and will continue to be a solid win. Alright, thank you for watching this long video. Do me a favor and interact with the stuff below. My name is DeWolf, Random Alpha, signing out.